This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it's Monday. It's October 30th, 2023. We're going to start out with a couple of economic stories today. First of all, the mortgage market is really now beginning to tank. We're seeing that the mortgage lenders are trying to claw back signing bonuses that they gave. So, for instance, during the boom, when the real estate boom was going on, various firms had to get more mortgage bankers to book more loans. So they're paying up to signing bonuses up to $100,000, maybe more in certain instances, and maybe less in others. But now that business has dried up, the mortgage companies want its signing bonuses back. And they've begun firing people if they can. Here's one being reported 1 month before the signing bonus was not returnable. So that means we're seeing a downturn in the mortgage market because rates have hit the highest level since 2000. Now the 30-year fixed mortgage is at about 8%. At the Mortgage Bankers Association annual conference this month in October, a mantra repeated by a few speakers was "stay alive until 25." Meaning keep in business until 2025, when maybe things will be a little bit better. I don't think so. The ultra low rate mortgages that were available either from the Obama administration on, when rates were about zero, and certainly during the pandemic, those rates have gone. And now the mortgage industry employment has declined by about 20% from 420,000 in 2021 to 337,000 employees in 2023. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the data, which is the Mortgage Banking Association is accumulating, simply anticipates another 10% decline in mortgages. So we're seeing the mortgage market largely drying up. That's the first kind of sign. There are indications. I'm seeing articles being written where the mortgage market is going to be looked at as bad as 2007, 2008, 2009. That's when the subprime real estate market collapsed and we had a major recession. Now I'm combining that with another story, which is indicating that the bond market is in for a bear market, a severe bear market. Now, what that means is the bond market is negative. It's downturn. Why? Because, again, rates are reflecting high in the bond market. So rates now are at a historic surge in interest rates is what we've had. And this is an article by Jim Grant, who's an editor of Grant's Interest Rate Observers. It's widely followed. He said that this could be the beginning of a multi-decade bear market. Bear market means a negative market. Bull market is positive market. Bear market is a down market. Why? Because the yield on 10-year treasuries is rising rapidly towards 5%, the highest level since 2007. Again, when we went into the subprime real estate crisis. From Europe to Australia to Japan, long-term interest rates are trending upward almost everywhere in the world. This raises the interesting question that we are embarking on a new bond bear market. That's what Jim Grant says. Why is Jim Grant being listened to? He's in his 40th year of doing this rate observers, and he looks at a historical perspective. And what he's been able to point out is that since the Civil War, we've had these 10, 20, 30-year cycles in bond markets. We've had a bond market interest rates were extremely low until recently. During the Biden administration, especially with this modern monetary theory, as we're just printing money, another billion here, another billion there. I mean, our debt on the U.S. national debt, our interest payments are at $1 trillion a year now, which is unbelievably high. I mean, I never imagined we'd see paying out $1 trillion a year just in the interest on the national debt. But we're there. And there's no end in sight. Now we've got the war going on with Israel. We'll get to that in a minute. But what this means is we are going to go through a massive economic downturn. And I've been warning about this. I'm going to actually kind of today issue an alarm because I think people need to get their money out of the stock market right away. Take a look at the free book we've got, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. Now, you can get this book. This is a book I've written with Dean Haskin. Dean Haskin is the CEO of Swiss America. He's a good friend. We've been working together for years. Swiss America has sponsored me since about 2004. And with Dean and I putting this book together, we're trying to warn people that this crash is going to be historic. It's going to be global. With all the crazy things we've been doing with this woke culture, with the climate change and hysteria, pulling back on hydrocarbon fuels, we are going to go through a massive economic downturn. Now, you can get a free copy of the book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create a Historic Gold Rush, by calling this toll-free number, 1-800-519-6268. 1-100-519-6268. And what I'm issuing is a warning because of two things. Number one, get your retirement money out of the stock market now, because the stock market has begun correcting down. And when that begins happening, you could be the last. You've got to get out first in a downturn. Otherwise, you can't get out too late and you start losing money that you won't recover for a long time. You end up either having to sell your stocks short, or you hold on to them until the economy comes back, which could take a decade. This economic downturn is going to be massive because debt worldwide, all the countries have been spending money like crazy. The social welfare needs with expanding populations and with the shifting in the economy, going to the internet, going to more mechanization, more machines, more robots, fewer really full-time jobs available in the United States. And with the massive problems we've got with the amount of immigration coming in and the cost of that immigration, we'll get to that later. But what happens is gold has been trading over the weekend. Gold was as high as $2,016 or $17 an ounce. Right at the moment, gold futures are $2,004 an ounce, but gold is breaking the $2,000 barrier. Now, it may not last there for a while, but it's going to continue to surge, going to start surging. Every downturn we've had over the last 50 or so years, and we're repeating patterns. 1973, we had the Yom Kippur War in Israel, and then it was followed by the OPEC oil embargo, which caused huge gas lines in the United States. Jimmy Carter went through stagflation. We're going through stagflation again. The economy is slowing down. There's layoffs. The mortgage market is going to collapse. The commercial real estate market is going to collapse because many of these buildings in downtown cities are not being occupied. So when Reagan came into office, gold surged from $35 an ounce, where it had been in 1971, before Nixon took us off the gold standard, to $843 an ounce. And then in the 2008-2009 collapse of the subprime market, gold went to $1,426 an ounce. The pandemic, gold hit an all-time high of $2,074.60 on March 8th, 2022. Now, we've got a bubble in the economy with real estate. And that was a 2008-2009 problem. And we've got an energy problem. Biden has taken down the U.S. oil reserves, and the lack of the ability to drill or to get new permits to drill have meant many of the oil-producing companies have taken down their reserves. I can envision, with the war going on in Israel, we're going to see $200 a barrel oil. Now, people are going to say that's crazy. Well, we're already at $100 a barrel in oil. And $200 a barrel is not inconceivable given where I see things going. The nature of the production is going to slow down. Oil right today, the crude oil futures are about $84 a barrel. That's going to hit 100, and then it's going to continue going up. With the war going on, you're going to see reductions in production. You're going to see the various Muslim countries supporting the Palestinians. Palestinians have huge support worldwide because the entire globe, certainly Western Europe and the United States, have begun going increasingly to the hard neo-Marxist left. And the neo-Marxist left tends to sympathize with anyone who is an enemy of the United States. And clearly the history of Hamas, funded by Iran, has been to destroy Israel. Okay, so the first part of the message today is talk to Swiss America and get yourself a copy of this free book and talk to them seriously about your IRAs, your 401ks. You do not want to have your retirement funds invested in mutual funds, which are tied to the stock market. It's time to get out of the stock market. We'll tell you the number again once more before the program's over today. Okay, let's talk about the war in Israel. And after I talk on this, Chris, I'm going to ask you to comment, so you might get ready on terms of after the discussion I have here about what's going on with the Israel war. Israel has now begun the incursion into the Gaza. Over the weekend, they started moving tanks, infantry, and artillery into the Gaza, and they began a cleaning out process to clean out Hamas. Now, the one big populated area in the Gaza Strip is just this little tiny piece of land down by Egypt, and it is the occupied and managed by Hamas. The left in Israel thought that if they could give Hamas some form of authority, Hamas would be reasonable and would stop wanting to destroy Israel. Well, the attack on October 7th clearly proved that to be wrong. Hamas came in, even with these paragliders, and killed some 1,400 Israelis, brutalized them. If you've taken a look at any of the videos, and I don't recommend that you should, they are absolutely horrifying. People who knew they were going to be dying, trying to protect themselves. They had no weapons because, the Israeli citizens by the left in Israel have been largely disarmed, so they couldn't defend themselves. A few kibbutzes that did have arms did pretty well fending off the terrorist attack. But Israel is now at least 2 miles deep into the densely populated Gaza Strip. When they hit Gaza City, it's going to be street-to-street fighting. Now, several things happen whenever Israel gets into one of these incursions, either into Gaza or to Lebanon. First of all, Israel's usually goaded to it by attacks, either missile attacks from Hezbollah into Israel or terrorist attacks from Gaza. There were suicide bombings for a long time until this wall was put up. Well, Hamas has figured out ways to breach this wall, obviously, and the intelligence agencies in Israel did not anticipate the attack, which has put political pressure on Netanyahu. At any rate, Israel is, I think, going to systematically destroy the Gaza. People have been told to evacuate. Hamas has been trying to block the evacuation in order to have human shields. It's one of the tactics of Hamas to protect themselves behind hostages, though Israel has to kill their own people in order to get to Hamas. But Israel's already taken out several of the leaders of Hamas, and the world is going to start pulling support away from Israel. With all the demonstrations, and George Soros has poured evidently some $15 million into Hamas organizations or Hamas supporting organizations around the world. The United States government's already told Israel to slow down. There will be stories coming out about civilian casualties. We already had one last week about this Gaza hospital that was supposedly shelled by the Israelis. It turned out to be evidently some shelling from Hamas itself that didn't actually hit the hospital. But yet, even the New York Times reported the story as if Israel had attacked the hospital. So Israel's not going to get good press on this. The world's going to turn against Israel. Certainly, the United Nations is going to turn against Israel when a motion to condemn Hamas's attack on October 7th as terrorist attack was defeated in the United Nations, applause broke out. Israel does not have the political support it does today that it had even 10 years ago, certainly not 20 years ago. The closer you get back to World War II, when people remember the Holocaust, people experience the Holocaust in their lives, it happened, Israel had stronger support, much stronger support. But biblically, what the Bible says is that once God reestablished the state of Israel, which happened in 1948 when Harry Truman overruled his own State Department and CIA and allowed the vote to partition Palestine to occur in the United Nations. That's the day the Israel, the state, the Jewish state, was born. That night, Ben-Gurion, who was the head of Israel at the time, was woken up in his bed because Nasser, the head of Egypt, had attacked during the night. The first Israeli war started with Egypt the night Israel was made into a state in 1948. This is an existential threat right now to Israel because Iran is behind it. Biden administration, John Kerry's been funding Iran. Stories over the weekend were that John Kerry had released to the Iranians and classified intelligence about Israel. And there were calls for John Kerry to resign. Even in a book I wrote in 2005 called Atomic Iran, I was pointing out that John Kerry at that time was saying that we ought to give Iran, support them with nuclear power to see what they would do with it. Well, John Kerry and President Clinton had the same idea with Korea. And what North Korea did is they made bombs. Well, Iran's trying to make bombs too. I wrote a second book on Israel. I've written 3 on Israel and Iran. Second one, I was 2009. I said, why Israel can't wait. And I think that's the point where Israel is today. If Israel launches a strike on Tehran, the capital of Iran, this war will definitely escalate. But Israel's got to be calculating, why wait? These countries obviously want to destroy Israel, and they'll only get stronger, and their support internationally to destroy Israel will only get stronger. So why wait? Attack now and try to preserve the state of Israel for a few more years, if not for perpetuity. What the Bible says is once Israel's reestablished, God says Jews will never be driven out of Israel again. Chris, your thoughts on all this? Because I think we're going into a World War III. I think we're going into a massive global downturn, and I don't think either's avoidable.
You're 100% on the money for that one. A lot of people thought World War III was going to stem out of the proxy war between Russia and the U.S. that's taking place in Ukraine. The fact is, it's going to stem out of the Middle East. We've been talking about this. A lot of people, a lot of the talking heads in the U.S. and a lot of the Western countries have been discussing this idea over the last 30 to 40 years. But here is the problem with Israel at this point. The political climate here. You mentioned it. You touched on it. The fact is, Israel will never be seen as something that's been surrounded by enemies anymore. This is a small country, which there are in Kamala Harris's words, a few larger countries around it who want to destroy it, and they will go in if they have the chance. The political climate among the Western nations is, well, Israel is seen as the quote-unquote white oppressor. So they go into Gaza, even though Israel waited about a week and a half. Was it 2 weeks they waited to warn the regular citizens of Gaza to get out? There was help by other nations to try to get people out of there. Hamas tried to keep them in as meat shields, and still Israel is looked upon as the oppressor, as the aggressor, and as the bad guys. Whereas Hamas, and you can see it across American campuses, has been forgiven for its rampage against, well, let's just say it, honest citizens and children.
Well, the world has not supported the Jews for maybe ever, and they've been oppressed, and yet they've still survived. And the Bible says they're God's chosen people, and here they are. I think Israel doesn't care anymore. I think Israel will fight this war, and if they're denied weapons, if they're not supported by the United States, course, we have a massive military force now assembling in the Mediterranean. We've got 2 aircraft carrier groups, the Eisenhower and one other is out there. There's 2 major carriers out there. And we've got about 20,000 troops who are assembling in the area and ready to go into combat.
And the fact is, if Israel does not fight back, if Israel doesn't show the world that they will destroy an area that's going to be coming in and attacking their citizens, the Hezbollah, other terrorist organizations, and enemy nations will be licking their chops, and they will take the opportunity to jump in.
Well, Syria is already launching missiles against American bases in Syria, and the war is expanding. Hezbollah could easily attack Israel from Lebanon, and Iran is behind it all. So this is going to be a regional war, and it's not going to go away quick.
I also want to add something I said a bunch of episodes ago, probably some of your earlier episodes. These countries know they have a very short window to do what they want to do. As long as Joe Biden is covering the helm here in the U.S. as the quote-unquote man in lieu, well, he's the man in lieu of a president here and man in lieu of a leader of the free world. As long as he's at the helm, these nations can do whatever they want, and they know it. Putin knows it. Middle Eastern nations know it. Terrorist organizations know it. And they probably only have a year plus left until somebody more powerful comes in and takes the reins. And then we won't hear a peep out of them for a while.
We'll see. We'll see. Obama was also not a supporter of Israel. When I was in Israel in 2009, Obama was in Cairo proclaiming he'd experienced Islam on 3 continents, even though he'd run for president denying it. I want to make an announcement. We've started, I don't know if you can see that very well. We'll have more on this. I'm launching my telemedicine programs. And this one is just launched. It's called obloconmd.com. And obloconmd.com in Spanish means speak with a doctor. Habla con el médico. It's a service I've launched now that's just begun. We're sponsored the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, which has something like 40,000 churches in it. And this past week, I was in Washington with the National Hispanic Pastors Alliance. We're sponsoring both organizations. And it comes with also a QR application that allows you to communicate with their parishioners. 501c3 organizations find this to be a very useful tool. I'm going to be marketing more on this and combining it with telemedicine programs. It's essentially for the Spanish-speaking population. I don't care about documentation. Again, I much preferred legal immigration and have argued for control over the border so we don't have the chaos we're having in the country right now with massive numbers, millions coming in. Oblon MD. It's a service for telemedicine in Spanish. So a Spanish person can speak with a Spanish-speaking doctor in their own language at a reasonable price. And it puts a doctor who speaks Spanish in your hand, in your telephone. The whole idea of this telemedicine is you'll have a doctor in your telephone that you can access, and the cost for this will be, I believe we're listing it at $69 for a consultation. I've been building this software for 2 years, the administrative software, and it runs on the Google Cloud platform. A Google company, Trello, did the design of the software with us, and you can see it if you go to Corstet.com. You can see all about how I created this company, Corstet, to be in telemedicine. We'll be launching more of these programs and discussing them here. Please take a look at Oblon MD. We're going to be doing some major advertising of this to get the word out. There's Corstet. That's my site, which is dedicated to the design of technology into telemedicine. And Chris, if you'll scroll down a little bit on that, you'll see the Trello mentioned. And Trello is our partner on this. We did the software design for putting this together. I intend to do quite a bit of my career here, my remaining years, doing more and more with getting telemedicine into the mainstream. So watch for more of this. We'll be doing programs on it, and we're expanding the Truth Central to apply health to control the control of the patients, with doctors who can prescribe off-label medications. Will go e-prescription to your pharmacy, and we'll be launching 2 in English here in the month of November. So Oblon MD is the first to launch. By the end of November, we'll have 3 programs going on telemedicine. Okay, let's continue now with the reporting of the news. I want to do another story here, which really caught my attention over the weekend. There's a major study out on the EVs, and finally, I think we're getting some truth out on these electric vehicles. The study shows that if you take into account and add, this was a study that was done by the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and they said let's quit lying about electric vehicles. Let's add in all the government subsidies and all the government tax breaks and supports that EVs get as part of their cost, because that's what's driving the price down. So the complete cost of fueling an electric vehicle for 10 years is $17.33 per equivalent gallon of gasoline. In other words, this whole idea of saying that it's, electric vehicles are 1.21 cost per gallon equivalent of charging a car. In other words, if you're charging, the electricity is cheaper than gasoline, so you're paying less, but you're still paying all the subsidies and everything that make electric vehicles. If you didn't have those subsidies, electric vehicles would cost on average even $20,000 to $50,000 more than they currently cost. Now, what's happening is that the car companies are realizing that they are losing money on producing these vehicles. So the real cost of a Ford Lightning is closer to $172,000, and nobody would buy that. And so what they're doing is they're pushing the cost down by government subsidies. When you factor that into the gasoline, in addition to the hydrocarbon fuels that have to be used to mine the rare earth minerals that go into the batteries, or to provide the electricity that is used to charge the batteries, without these excess tax credits and outright subsidies, you would find that the electric vehicle market would be unaffordable for just about everybody. But yet you have the Biden administration mandating a government, 65% or 70% of all cars by 2023 or 2025 or 2030 are going to have to be EVs. Well, to increase the adaptation of that much and a switch from diesel or gasoline to electric vehicles will be, it's not feasible. The government subsidies are pushing the budget deficits much higher, and the car companies are losing money producing electric vehicles. The car lots are full of electric vehicles. The market's just not there. When people realize that these electric vehicles catch fire, they're heavy, there's not enough charging stations for them, they're not practical if you want to go long distances, and the idea that we're even going to have long-haul trucks become electric is just not going to happen without destroying the economy. And as I pointed out, the climate change movement is a neo-Marxist movement, and its aim is to destroy the economy. I pointed that out in the book I wrote, The Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change. And among the books I've written, just out now, and we did a deep dive on it all last week, but this book has started again to do very well. It's called The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. And it's an extensive book. It's 400 some pages. It's got 1,441 footnotes to it. And what it's saying is that the current left, the woke left, if you really want to understand it, I think you've got to understand it in order to defeat it. It has behind it a mentality of being neo-Marxist. They really started out with the climate movement, got co-opted by people like John Holdren to become a depopulation movement. And we are now in a depopulation cycle that's being reflected by many ideas, including electric vehicles, windmills, solar, that do not work to fuel a modern industrial society. And the left knows this. It's why they support them. Because basically we're going through a great attempt to control humanity under totalitarianism, and I'm fighting this everywhere we can. The third book will be in this series. It's the Great Awakening series. I think finally people see where they're headed with this ideology. Woke is not going to mean anything when you lose your home and you can't feed your family. An increasing number of Americans are facing this problem. Now, the last story I want to cover today has to do with the CVS stores. I was just in Washington, D.C., and I was shocked to see Washington, D.C. When one of the places I go to have dinner at Morton's and right across from the Mayflower Hotel, I have a little porch there. You can sit out on it. The CVS stores in D.C. are putting up pictures, even of toilet paper, rather than having them on the shelves. Why? Because they can't stop the theft. The theft is rampant. So it's like third world. You know, the DC homicide rate hit its highest level in 20 years. Auto thefts have more than doubled over the past year. So with the Black Lives Matter and the defund the police movement, and with the infrastructure of the District of Columbia being managed by Democrats, you're finding the city is going into chaos. It's not safe any longer to walk around the streets at night. Even congressmen have been mugged or been experiencing carjackings. So the violence in D.C. is endemic. The crime, this is Andy Biggs, a Republican from Arizona, Representative Andy Biggs, who says, the crime we are seeing in just a few blocks from the Capitol, this building, is unprecedented. He chairs the Subcommittee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance. Well, if we abandon the cities to crime, and in New York, these hotels, major hotels, are being taken over by the immigrants coming in, they're going to cost the city millions and millions of dollars to house the illegal immigrants into hotels because there's nowhere else to put them. So if you've got hotels in New York City, the Roosevelt Hotel, a few others, they're entirely now just immigrants. You're having, again, crime zones. You're having situations these are not yet communities. These people are going to be moved out eventually, but it's probably going to take years. And it fundamentally changes the character of our downtowns. Our downtowns become dominated by homelessness, crime, mobs, carjackings, and this looting, stealing off the shelves. Our cities are going to be not livable. And the cities are going to rapidly start going bankrupt. The Democratic cities are on the verge of bankruptcy. This will again be another major impact on the downturn that's coming. Because once the cities become unsafe, people are not going to return to work in the office buildings. So you're going to be facing a major, major crisis here. The solution to this is to stop this woke nonsense where the criminals are viewed as the victims, where the courts are releasing criminals back onto the streets. This is chaos. It's why this book says the final result, and the cultural Maoism, we're going through cultural Maoism right now. If you believe in God, in the vote that was taken for the Speaker of the House when it was announced that the new Speaker is a Christian, the Democrats booed. If Jesus Christ is being booed in the U.S. Congress, we're in a desperate state. And if the country is going to be ruled by demons and the cities are going to be unsafe, this country is headed in the exact wrong direction, and it will fail. This country was made, and the rules were made here for a population that supports God and knows the difference between right and wrong. If we lose, though, that moral compass, we're going to descend into an unlivable situation in the United States, which the United States has never seen before. I'm also appalled at Jack Smith and the effort to gag Donald Trump. This is in complete violation of the First Amendment. But our powers that be in the Justice Department don't seem to think that the Constitution or the Bill of Rights apply to anyone they don't like. And they become politically motivated so that they're now more politically enforcement ardent. They do not stop the Biden corruption. Despite all the reporting that's been done on the Biden corruption, they don't look into it at all in terms of any prosecutions. Hunter Biden gets a slap on the wrist. And the corruption is obvious. I think we continue to pour billions into Ukraine just to keep the money laundering going, because Ukraine is one of the best money laundering places in the world, one of the most corrupt states on the planet. And in the meantime, the third world is going to suffer dramatically. There's going to be more deaths in the third world from lack of cheap energy and the lack of a food supply that is reliable as the world descends into anarchy. I'm going to wrap it up in a minute, Chris, but would you like to make some comments before we do?
Well, you see it again. They're trying to bankrupt anybody, as you said before. They're trying to bankrupt anybody who is citing who helped Donald Trump out, who can actually help his campaign out. The problem is, for these people on the far left, they've been playing with the justice system for so long. They've been showing us blatantly they can get away with everything for so long. People who would normally vote for Trump, or maybe who were on the fence about Trump maybe in 2020, will look at this and say, hey, what happens if it's us? What happens if Joe Sixpack or me, who just is trying to make his or her way and trying to become an honest citizen, get caught up in some of this corruption? What's going to happen to us? They get the slap on the wrist. We get thrown in jail. Heck, you can't even show up to a protest anymore if the government doesn't like it without serving jail time. You can't put a meme up that the government doesn't like without serving jail time. So what's going to happen? These people who are trying to persecute Trump mercilessly are actually running free campaign ads for him for 2024.
Well, we're going to see a crash, and it's one that is being caused intentionally by the left, who wants to destroy America in order to build their utopian state, which will be totalitarian. And as anyone's experienced communism know, communism kills millions, many by starving them to death. And it's a lie. But it is a lie that has great power behind it, because it's a fundamental lie, the lie that we can eat the fruit, the forbidden fruit, and we can be masters of the world, and we can perfect a planet that God left imperfect. Get a copy of this free book. Call Swiss America. How the Coming Global Crash Will Create a Historic Gold Rush. The number is 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. And it's going to be a judgment of God that we're going to be experiencing in the form of war, pestilence, economic downturn. There'll be famine. I mean, it's not going to be a pretty picture. But we need to follow the remedy that God gives us, which is 2 Chronicles 7:14. We need to get on our knees and ask God's forgiveness for taking God out of the schools and for letting millions of babies be chopped to pieces by murdering abortionists, babies who were not given the opportunity to live, to be born. And that's a direct violation of God's law. And God will hear our prayer and heal our land, but only if we acknowledge that as much as we did not do enough to stop this before it could gain to where woke is today broke. So Dr. Jerome Corsi, I do believe we'll get through this. I don't believe God created this to fail. But I do believe the judgment of God is coming, and it will be massive this time around. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Monday. It's October 30th, 2023. thetruthcentral.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. Please join us. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.